President Bola Tinubu has returned to Nigeria. Tinubu was in Paris, France, alongside world leaders like the host, the French President Emmanuel Macron, for the new Global Financial Pact Summit held at the Palais Brongniart. After the two-day summit, the president proceeded to London, United Kingdom, for a short private visit and has now returned to Nigeria. With his return, Nigerians now await the ministerial list as he builds his cabinet and embark on the task of governance. Just after the Eid celebration, it is barely a month to the constitutional deadline for Tinubu to forward the list of his ministers to the Senate. And the big question is on the caliber of persons who will be hired to help the president translate his agenda and tackle the myriad of challenges facing Nigeria. Well, Austin Ogannah joins me now. He's the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Wheel newspaper. Good to see you, Austin, and thanks for your time. Well, quickly here, the president is back. But before we dig in deep, let's start off by talking about the National Assembly. That was one big story many journalists and Nigerians were excited about. Let us in on how your reading, because you were actually projecting, writing at that point in time. How did it go the way you saw it?
Thank you for inviting me to speak on this and to be on your show. We've always known that the politics of the National Assembly, always goes exactly how it went the last time. Understanding that usually after the elections and even before the elections, from the primaries, you have people that begin to position themselves for the leadership of the National Assembly. So for the 10th Assembly, what actually transpired was actually what we projected. I think that from the work we did, at some point we actually thought Yari was going to emerge, but eventually we switched our bid to Godswill Akpabio towards the tail end after the vice president intervened. It was actually the vice president that swung it for Akpabio. If he had not lobbied, pressured, and did all the consultations that he did and the deals that were done, I think Akpabio would have been toast. So yeah, that's, I think, this, most watchers, most people that followed the politics and everything that went into the emergence of the leadership of the 10th Assembly would really give credit to the Vice President for helping deliver Godswill Akpabio. When the whole thing started, we knew that the President and the party itself had adopted, it wasn't a secret anymore that Akpabio had been adopted. Now, delivering Akpabio became a problem because a section of the senators as well were rooting for someone else other than Akpabio, and the deals started. But at some point, based on our reading, it became really tough for Akpabio to emerge because the Yari movement was growing and Yari had a lot of cash in hand, to play with.
So it's true, after all, the whole talk of money's exchanging hands?
Absolutely. You see, in the kind of politics that we play in Nigeria, money plays a very huge role, probably 70, 80%, and the rest is about goodwill and what have you. So Yari's, the funding that was available to Yari became a problem for the Akpabio group. But thankfully for the Akpabio group, and of course the leadership of the APC, and of course the presidency, Vice President Shetima was able to convince, cajole, beg, the other senators, to support Akpabio, and that's how Akpabio emerged.
We'll still come into the list, but again, I want to stay within the Red Chamber, knowing full well that was a big fight within, an inter-party fight, an inter-party squabble, you know, to get the leadership. Has the party been able, do you have a sense of knowledge if the party has been able to pacify some aggrieved minds?
You see, I think it was 2 days ago that we wrote a story on the wheel. No, it wasn't the original story. So I think it was the Sun newspaper that put up a story that some aggrieved senators were fighting to occupy the other juicy positions, the juicy committees, and of course we all know that the key committees are like the Committee for Appropriation and Petroleum, those are and Defense. You know, so for some reason they put up a story that they were ready to decamp from the ruling party to the main opposition party, which is of course the PDP. And
you mean? Let me get this straight.
Yeah,
so some
yeah,
APC members in the Senate
so some APC senators
who were on Yaris camp.
Yeah, who were on the losing side, you know, threatened to leave the APC for the PDP as a tool, you know, to negotiate for the juicy committees. But apparently this backfired because I think yesterday or 2 days ago, we wrote on the wheel, we actually got, it was an exclusive, where the leadership of the party said, look, if you guys decamp, because the only condition you can decamp, according to our laws today, the only condition you can decamp from one party to the other is if there's a division in the party. But as it is today, the APC is united. So they want that if indeed the senators leave the APC for the PDP, the leadership will automatically declare their seats vacant, and INEC would have to do by-elections to fill those seats. So I think that that actually jolted this group of senators, and we haven't heard anything about that again. But other than that, I think the APC is as united as ever. Across board, elections are over. I think President Tinubu, being a very good politician and knowing exactly how to play party politics, is doing everything he's supposed to do as the leader of the party, unlike President Buhari, who stood back and, you know, let everyone in the party, you know, do whatever they wanted to do.
You know, also in high-wide politicking going on, and that is why Nigerians are excited. You just spoke about President Tinubu now, and Nigerians are already speaking of the speed with which he's been able to act and address some key issues. That brings us to the big one. Now he's back from Paris, and Nigerians are looking to seeing the list that he will be sending to the Senate, specifically to speak about, speaking of which, those that will be working with the president. So the ministerial list is a big thing.
Yes, it is. You know, we've been waiting for this list for a very long time. Considering that the president just started his tenure, I don't think he's even done 1 month yet. You know, but with the speed that he's deployed since he assumed office, we've been waiting and excited to see who makes the list. From what we're hearing and from the feelers we're getting, it appears that we're going to have a cabinet of people that really have the capacity to, you know, to help him deliver his mandate. And for some of us that have followed, that have studied Tinubu and how President Tinubu and how he governs, how he plays his politics, we expect that he would have very capable, young, and aggressive people that will help, you know, turn the ship of state, because understanding where the country is today with our dwindling revenues, the issues of insecurity.
When you say, sorry to cut you there, when you say young, many Nigerians were wondering, are we still about the age thing?
Young, when I say young, I mean people in their, I don't expect anybody in their 30s. I don't think that he will go that low. Probably people in their 40s, 50s, and maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 people in their 60s. I say this understanding how the politics of this country works, irrespective of what the president really wants to do. He would have to, fulfill some political IOUs, I believe, some that helped him win elections in their areas and what have you. We know for sure that someone like Rabiu Kwakwanso, who is not in his 40s or 50s, is being seriously considered for a ministerial position, understanding that the president is looking beyond 2023. He's already looking at 2027. So with a man like Kwakwanso on his side, locks Kano for him and probably 1 or 2 states in the Northwest. So if you understand how Tinubu thinks, you'll understand that some of the people that will be in his government are those that will help him in the next election.
What's that thing called again? Government of national unity. Is that what this is about?
I'll call it a government of national interest. Yes, because you have, the country is quite divided now. Elections are over, but elections are not over in court because we're still in court. There's this debate that the APC didn't really win and that either the PDP or the Labour Party won. So we're in court to determine that. And until that process plays out, we're still in election mode because anything can still happen, even if a lot of people don't believe that the judiciary would do what it needs to do if indeed, the elections did not go exactly how INEC played it. But that on the side, looking at how, still going back to how I know he thinks and how he plays, having spoken to a couple of people that I know are close to him, he would pick people that, number one, would deliver on his mandate, and number two, will help him win the next election. Tinubu has already forgotten about the 2023 presidential election. If you understand, if you're a student of Tinubu, you know that Tinubu's mindset is fixed on the next election, and everything he's going to do right now, those appointments.
But you mentioned Kano, for instance, and the Kwakwanso. You are very specific this time. And keep in mind that Kano has a few heavyweights. And the last governor of the state,
You mean Ganduje?
Ganduje, isn't, a good friend of his once upon a time political godfather.
Yes, I agree with you, but it appears that Ganduje himself...
So how do you think the president will be able to navigate that?
I think Ganduje has lost out in the power game of Kano, understanding how it is. There's a new governor that is pulling his weight that's not from the APC. And Kwakwanso has proven over time that he's a factor. If you understand how Kano politics works or worked, it used to be Shekarau, Kwakwanso, and the sitting governor who happened to be Ganduje at that time. That's how, the power is always shared in Kano. So today...
So as the triangle's changed.
So it's a triangle, now it's changed. So you have a governor and Kwakwanso on the same side. His stooge, more like somebody from his party. So that's a solid edge. It's clear that Ganduje, I don't know. I don't know what Tinubu is going to do with him. I know they are close, but understanding that Tinubu has at least met with Ganduje, I understand, if I recall correctly, one while he was abroad in France, and the other after he was sworn in, tells a lot that Ganduje is the man in Kano today. So what does that leave? Sorry, Kwakwanso. So what does that leave Ganduje? Leaves him hanging, and he knows it.
So that's for that region.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of regional politics and a high-powered one at that. And some of the key concerns. But quickly, Ganduje has been tested and tried. He's been Minister of Defense.
You mean Kwakwanso?
Yeah, I mean, Kwankwaso has the Minister of Defense. And he's also done quite a number of things around the education sector, especially child empowerment. But taking it down to brass tacks, speaking of which, some of the key ministries which Nigerians are looking to see, finance, and of course you already have your NSA. By the way, we haven't spoken about Nuhu Ribadu and his team, the NSA.
Yeah, Ribadu, I believe, just formally assumed the office either today or yesterday. Good pick. Ribadu is quite experienced. I tell people that my only issue with Ribadu is his temperament, but otherwise, I think he's a perfect fit for the job. Very connected, knows people, knows how to pull resources together. And that's what the NSA's office is really about. It's about intelligence, your network, the people you know, resources you can pull together to get things done. So I believe that he will do very well in that role. And then for the other positions, we hear one or two things. Yesterday, Dr. Mohammed Pate, who used to be, I think it was under Jonathan, he was the Minister of State for Health, and then after that got a job with Gavi. I think he took over Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's role, if I'm not mistaken. From his letter of resignation to Gavi, he said he regrets to leave Gavi because he's going back home to serve his country. So it tells us that he'll probably be Minister for Health. But otherwise, the Tinubu clique, he has been very, 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 very coded with, with the ministerial list or those really being considered. Every other thing we're doing is just subject of speculation. Wale Edu may actually either end up, I see him probably as finance minister, probably playing the kind of role.
So the way Ribadu was moved from an SA to the NSA?
Yes, you see, I debated with a colleague of mine on Ribadu's role, why he was first appointed as special advisor on security. I think that was the original role. And I think we agreed that, even if the president really wanted to do it, he was under a lot of pressure to consider someone else for that role. So I think he eventually pulled it off and let Ribadu have it, because then someone else said to me that, look, what makes you think that everything President Tinubu is doing today is not looking towards transiting everyone to a ministerial role? So he's appointed, I think, 8 or 9 special advisors, and out of them he's moved one now to NSA, Ribadu. So I think there are about 7 or 8 more. Won't be surprised if 6 or 7 of them end up being ministers.
Let's close on this, and if we can do this in a minute. It's always been, a kind of tradition, started with President Obasanjo to Buhari, where they keep the petroleum ministry to themselves. Do you see President Tinubu doing that?
No, I don't think Tinubu is going to do that. Tinubu is smarter. Tinubu is a businessman. He understands that keeping the Minister of Petroleum in the presidency will not do well, will not achieve what it's meant to achieve, understanding that under Obasanjo, the Minister of Petroleum portfolio and the NNPC didn't do well. I mean, Minister of Petroleum is basically NNPC, control of NNPC, that's just what it is. There's really nothing else. Buhari tried it was a disaster. So I don't think Tinubu is going to go that route. I think he's going to appoint a substantive minister and probably appoint a new set of management for the NNPC. That's my take.
Austin Ogannah, publisher of The Will. Many thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for having me.